Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, criminal justice and the political process. That's not only the name of an undergraduate course I took at NC State a long time ago, it's also an accurate description for a decision made yesterday by the state attorney of Palm Beach County, Florida, concerning Corey Lewandowski, the campaign manager for Donald Trump.
It appears, based on the freeze frames from the video recording and an independent photograph taken by a Washington Post photographer, that Ms. Field brushed or touched Mr. Trump's arm. He then appears to react to Ms. Field by pulling his arm back and away from her, at which time Mr. Lewandowski reached forward and grabbed Ms. Field's arm. Although the facts support the allegation that Mr. Lewandowski did grab Ms. Field's arm against her will, Mr. Lewandowski has a reasonable hypothesis of innocence. There is insufficient evidence to rebut these defenses. Therefore, although probable cause exists, the state will no-file this case.
For more on the story, we're pleased to be joined here on the anchor desk by the state attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Aronberg. Dave, we really appreciate your time on Newsmax Prime, and we should state at the outset that whatever was written nationally, here in Florida, and especially in South Florida, you have a reputation as being a straight shooter, pretty nonpartisan or bipartisan in your approach. So we'll go at it from that angle. And let's begin with the law. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV, but hearing from attorneys and other observers, my understanding is Florida law has a very low bar for battery. And if that is true, did Lewandowski possibly violate the law by intentionally touching the reporter?
We agreed with the Jupiter Police Department that there was probable cause to charge Mr. Lewandowski with battery because it is a low bar. It's just an unwanted touching, and it has to be intentional, of course. So when the Jupiter Police Department investigated and they filed charges, we thought, okay, we found out about it afterwards, and then we didn't get the file till days later, but then our investigation begins. Their standard is probable cause. Our standard is there a reasonable likelihood to get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, a much higher burden.
When you look back at this, did your office have concerns that Corey may have initially made a misstatement when he said he never touched the woman and called her delusional? And I guess the question would come with that misunderstanding or misstatement, why wouldn't he just apologize publicly and be done with it?
Yeah, we looked at everything, all the statements, and it was all taken into account. And I do think that had there been an apology at the beginning, that this likely would never have ended up in the criminal justice process. But it did, and so we treated this case like we do all the others. We did the investigation, and then we treated it as we would have in another case, and no-filed it. Because in this case, Corey Lewandowski had the defense of others. He could have said that he was trying to defend his boss, Mr. Trump, when Ms. Fields touched Mr. Trump, broke through the protective that barrier that the Secret Service had, and then touched Mr. Trump. Mr. Lewandowski saw this, reached out, grabbed her, and we believe that a reasonable jury would have found him not guilty. And as prosecutors, we can't ethically file those charges then.
As you know, and I prefaced it earlier, and we should point out for the record, your resume, you have been a state senator before, you've run for public office. It's interesting to look at what happened in this case. Some Republicans were saying that Donald Trump should fire Lewandowski. Liberal groups are now saying that this is Donald Trump thinking that he and his campaign is above the law. When you hear that kind of assessment on a political basis, do you agree with that?
Well, politics didn't enter into our deliberations because although I'm a registered Democrat, that's no surprise, I've been on this show before, and my political leanings are public, but once we step foot in the state attorney's office, there's no politics because it's all about doing justice. And, as I said publicly, I had been supporting Hillary. I was a law school classmate and dorm mate with Ted Cruz. I knew Marco Rubio in the legislature, and I had met Mr. Trump on a few occasions. So with all that, it didn't matter. We just based it on the facts of this case. We had to make a determination whether a reasonable jury would find him guilty. And we said no, that this may not even get to the jury. A judge may have just said, no, you don't have a good enough case, and it's not even going to go to the jury, and let alone if it goes to the jury, we thought they would rule that there's reasonable doubt.
Dave, about a minute and a half remains. I'm interested in two things. You were watching yourself, and in that press conference, as a prelude to bringing you out here on the set, what kind of tweets and mail have you received? And looking back on all the attention and all the scrutiny, now with a day to reflect on it, what has this experience been like for you professionally, personally, and politically? Well,
I've received my share of hate mail over the years, because when you just try to do things regardless of the politics, you're going to get it from all different sides. But this case, I've never received so much of an amount of emails and tweets and all these things. And it really does build up your thick skin. I'm sure you've experienced that when you were in Congress running for statewide office. But, you know, you just have to do justice. It's part of this job. And, you know, at the end of the day, I just want people to know that and believe in the process, that the process was non-political, whether or not they agree with the result. And personally for you, you know, the standard is this. When you got up this morning and looked in the mirror, first of all, last night when you went to bed, easy to fall asleep, and this morning looking in the mirror, everything fine? 30 seconds. Yeah. As prosecutors, we have an ethical obligation to only put forward cases where we believe there's a reasonable likelihood of a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. You can't go into a case thinking, you know, there's reasonable doubt here, but we're just going to throw it to the jury anyways. No. So ethically, we could not file this case. We did the right thing. Dave Aronberg, obviously you've been busy. Yesterday you dealt with a nationwide audience. You're back with a nationwide audience tonight, but in a much more intimate setting. We thank you for your time, for your candor, for your explanations here tonight on Newsmax Prime. Thanks very much, JD.